to the Blueprint to Your Success Story, Essential Power Words and Workbook, all written by Dr. John A. Chuback, physician and surgeon from New Jersey. I'm Dr. Paul Reeves, your host and moderator, also host of Dr. Paul's Family Talk radio show. Also as part of the panel, Dr. Diane Chuback, CEO of Chuback Medical Group, and Dr. Deborah Waitley, psychologist and author from California. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we take you through the entire book, The Blueprint to Your Success Story, Essential Power Words and Workbook, all written by Dr. John A. Chuback, MD. Greetings and welcome to The Blueprint to Your Success Story. My name is Paul Reeves, the host of Dr. Paul's Family Talk radio show on Impact Radio USA, also a longtime and former school principal. And we have with us Dr. John A. Chuback, Dr. Diane Chuback, and Dr. Deborah Waitley. So let's bring into the show Dr. John A. Chuback. This is all about the book you've written, The Blueprint to Your Success Story. So tell our listeners a little bit about you and your background.
Good morning, Paul. Good to see you again. My background is that I'm trained as a cardiovascular surgeon, and I've been in practice nearly 20 years now in northern New Jersey. But in the last 20 years, I have become very, very interested in the idea of personal development, personal success, personal growth, and what I like to call climbing the ladder of human personhood. I had a very extensive formal academic education and finished my training at the age of 33 and went into practice as an open heart surgeon at that time. And I found that I was professionally very unhappy and looking to change directions. And interestingly and ironically, and I think quite amazingly, as I now know the universe works, one of the key components to getting me back on the right track and going in the right direction was a phenomenal program called The Psychology of Winning by Dr. Dennis Waitley. And that program was sent to me by a very dear friend who's about 20 years older than me, a gentleman who's in the financial services industry. And he sent me Dennis Waitley's program, The Psychology of Winning, which I began to listen to over and over. I was listening to this program over and got me on the track of becoming a very serious student of the human mind, human potential, and again, personal achievement. And that journey has not stopped since that time. And I've done thousands of hours of reading and studying on a daily basis, been really committed to that process. And as you know, Paul, because we've been working together for some time, I've written a number of books and we've done a number of podcasts together. And I'm just fascinated with this subject. And my drive now is to pass it along, share it with others, pay it forward, as they say. And so my wife, Diane, has been, on that journey with me. From the time we were students. Diane was getting her PhD in neurochemistry, and I was getting my MD in New Jersey at New Jersey Medical School. And she went through all of those years of training with me, and then has been, my partner in business, helping my practice grow. She also has an MBA. She's our CEO at Chuback Medical, and she has also taken this journey in personal development and it's high time that she's working alongside me in this part of my career in personal development. Almost miraculously, and without any particular intention, Diane and I came to know Deborah Waitley. And Dr. Waitley is the daughter of Dennis Waitley, who really started my journey. So it's quite moving for me actually today to be involved in this program and have all of us gathered together in taking part in exploring my book, which will be coming out in the next several months. This is a prelude program really to the book, to the launch of the book, which currently the working title is The Blueprint to Your Personal Success Story. And that's hence the name of our podcast today and our radio show. So that's a brief synopsis of the last 25 or 30 years of my life and how we got here today. Um, but it's quite miraculous for me, and I'm, certainly feeling blessed to be here. And I want to thank you, Paul, also because Paul and I should say, met serendipitously through the launch of one of my previous books um, called "Make Your Own Damn Cheese" through my agent, and that was on his fabulous show, Dr. Paul's Family Talk on Impact Radio USA. And that's how Paul and I just really clicked. I did many, many interviews with many interviewers, but Paul and I really had great chemistry. And that's why Paul is an essential part of today's show too. So that's it in a nutshell.
All right. Well, thank you for your kind words. And just for kicks, and so our listeners and viewers know, you and Diane actually met in college, right? I believe in a science course.
Well, we met in medical school. I was in medical
Okay.
school, and she
Okay.
was in the biomedical sciences program getting her
Okay.
PhD in neurochemistry. But those first 2 years for each of us, we shared many of the same programs.
Right.
So when I met Diane on the first day, I said, "Time to make your move, big guy, before somebody else gathers gathers this beauty up." So we
That
acted
is it.
quickly, and we've been together since then. That was I would say 1995. So it's a long
Okay.
time.
Thereby proving
Mhm.
once again how smart you are. You saw an opportunity and you took it.
You have to act. We're going to talk a lot about that word, act.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring her into the show right now. Your wife, but also the CEO of Chuback Medical Group, Dr. Diane Chuback. Good morning, Diane. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here. This is one of John's many projects in terms of podcasts and books and things, and I'm very, very grateful to be part of this one. So, yes, I am right now the CEO of Chuback Medical Group, and I have been since its inception 16 years ago. I was working previously in academia, and with my PhD, I was doing research in neuroscience and adjunct teaching and whatnot. And I absolutely loved the academic life. But when John went solo with his practice, we discussed that maybe this should be sort of a family endeavor. And I have to say, it was a little bit of a switch gears for me because I am a scientist, and that's the way I sort of brought myself up. But then I had to make this jump into the business world to become an entrepreneur and to figure out how to get a business to run. People think it's doctor's office and it's a medical practice, but it's
Right.
it's a business, and there are employees, and there are taxes, and there are HR issues, and so that was a really interesting sort of arc for me to go through. But I developed such an interest in it as I was doing it, and I really wanted to embrace it more. So as John mentioned, about 5 years ago, I got my MBA, and it was just such a fabulous experience for me to really understand how to work and manage each of the individual functional departments of a business. And it made me realize I was already doing a pretty good job. I just didn't know that I just wasn't aware of just exactly how the organization is supposed to go. So I really take pride in what I do. I've grown a lot. I have been on this journey a bit with John, certainly not to the depth that he has been in terms of personal development, but I myself certainly do my reading every day, my studying. I want to be the best leader that I can possibly be for our employees, for our family, and just how to really manage things well and to live a really full and good life.
Okay. Now, you mentioned running the business as a business. Of course, you have medical issues that come up, HR issues you mentioned, taxes. You forgot to
Yes.
mention all of the fun that you sometimes have with insurance companies, right?
Well, the smartest thing I think I ever did was that I hired a wonderful, wonderful medical biller, Maria Hughes, and she is also our chief of operations because she's just that good. She just
Yeah.
understands everything, and that's so much a part of being a leader and really wanting to you know become the best person you can. But the only way to do that really is to build others, to really lift others to do the best that they can. So that's always been my philosophy.
Yep, I have dealt with Maria before, and she's top of the line. So you found a great person, and you've developed her into even more greatness. So So far, so good. Let's meet Dr. Deborah Waitley. I believe you're in California. Dr. Waitley, tell us, first of all, good morning and tell us all about you.
Thank you. Yes, I am in San Diego, California, and I'm so excited to be part of the show. And nice to meet you, Paul. Nice to be here with John and Diane. Nice to be here with you and all the listeners. Yes, so I've trained as a psychologist for over 20 years. And since I was a young girl, was always interested in human behavior and psychology. So no surprise, probably a lot to do with the influence of my father, as John mentioned, is Dr. Dennis Waitley. So I grew up in an environment that was very much focused on fulfilling human potential. Those were the early messages I got. So I wanted to continue in that field and studied psychology for quite a few years, different parts of psychology. First, I thought I wanted to be a clinical psychologist and then maybe a counseling psychologist. And then focused my efforts in organizational psychology, where I learned a lot about groups as a whole, not just the individual, but I was able to help large numbers of people in that field, looking at performance management, how do we reach goals successfully as individuals and as groups. High performance human potential was always number one for me. And what delineates those achievers from others? So that was always something I was interested in. I had a chance to co-author a book with my father, The Psychology of Winning for Women. So we had a chance to take some of those traits and apply them to women as well. What's really gotten me passionate lately is this opportunity to work with John and Diane, and this book, Blueprint for Your Success Story, is so fascinating to me because it has the potential to bring it out to so many people and emphasizing that success is about creating your own story and your own success for your life. So I've been searching and seeking and involved in that success mode, that success world, and find that it's really about creating what's authentic for you. So I'm just so happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay. Now, also, I read or heard your dad say one time that you used to travel with him quite a bit when he was on his speaking tours, right? So you actually saw him live and in person speak to hundreds and thousands.
Yeah, so not just at the dinner table every
Right.
night growing up,
Right.
hearing all the material that he was going to put in his books, but also was on the road with my dad, either in the green room behind the scenes,
Mhm.
or also had an opportunity for 3 years to travel throughout China. We went to 16 different cities in some programs for entrepreneurs and managers
Yeah.
throughout Asia. Yes.
I remember him telling the story that often lunch for the two of you was whatever somebody gave you in the back of a limousine as you're going from one speech to another. So that's a good bonding moment for father-daughter, I think. I wish I
Yes,
had it
we
with
had
mine.
many conversations, yes, behind the scenes like that. Yeah.
All right. Well, Dr. John Chuback, let's get back to you. What's going on with the book, The Blueprint to Your Success Story? Maybe just tell us the background of the genesis. How did all this get started?
Well, it's a culmination really of that 20-year journey of studying. And, one of my, Paul, from the Straight A Handbook, my first book, that I believe very strongly that most knowledge is really vocabulary. To become a psychologist, you need to have a certain vocabulary. To become an educator like yourself, there's a vocabulary. To become a scientist, there's a vocabulary. Um, Physician, attorney, engineer, etc. Now, there are some physical components to some vocations. Also, as a surgeon, of course, you need to learn to work with your hands and operate and develop dexterity skills, etc. Same for various uh, professions like carpentry, electronics, electrician, et cetera, plumbing, where there's a physical component. But you can't really engage yourself in the physical component until you become a master of the lexicon of that area of the professional jargon. Even in obviously, Paul has a very strong background in music and musical education. In music, if you don't know the definition of terms, it's impossible to perform, and it's impossible to communicate, and it's impossible to learn and grow and teach and so forth. So it became obvious to me in studying this genre of personal development and human achievement and human potential, as I read and read and read hundreds and hundreds of books and listened to thousands of hours of audio and watched thousands of hours of video presentations over the last 20 years, that like everything else, this area of expertise, this subject has its own lexicon, its own language, its own jargon. And many of the words we'll hear again and again and again throughout this material. And it's that repetition that is the essence of learning. I often say repetition is the mother of education, or the first corollary of education. And so as you go through this sort of material from numerous authors over literally centuries and millennia, going back to the old scriptures of all the great ancient religions from every corner of the world, you're going to hear the same language and the same vocabulary and the same words again and again and again. And with time, as Paul and I are working right now on another podcast for Make Your Own Damn Cheese, my other book, with time, those words will penetrate what I call the psychic barrier and impregnate the subconscious mind. And once that has happened, then the individual's paradigm changes, the individual's personal belief system changes, the self-image, the self-concept changes. And once that has happened, then behavior changes, habitual behavior changes, and we see a change in the results. I thought it was very interesting in Deborah's opening that she mentioned organizational psychology and the organizational work that she does with groups. One of the really fascinating, I guess, moments for me in awareness in studying this material is that although it's a very personal process, and that's why we call it personal development, we find that these paradigms and these belief systems and these self-image issues are cultural. They're cultural in nations, they're cultural in states, they're cultural in families, they're cultural in professional organizations and businesses. And it becomes a shared belief system, a shared self-image. And I think that it was very, very interesting. I'd love to get further into that with Deborah because it's one of her areas, many areas of expertise. So again, bringing it back around to your initial question, I had become aware just through osmosis and through the process of study that I was hearing these terms, these powerful words again and again and again. And their meaning became deeper and deeper to me, more impactful. The more I thought about them, the more I studied them, the more I went over them, the more I wrote in my journal, the more I worked with them. And then, again, as we talk about and Make Your Own Damn Cheese, I think there was a moment where my superconscious mind had a flash of inspiration and I saw the book. I just said, boom, that's it. I have to compile these words as sort of a dictionary for success. And that's where it began, as just a massive culmination of vocabulary that just poured out of me. I just sat down with my journal and just, boom, started writing, focus, inspiration, determination, discipline, et cetera, et cetera. The words just poured out of me literally by the hundreds. And I came up with about 500 what I thought were essential, fundamental words, and initially cataloged them more or less as a dictionary and a reference book. And then in working with that and working with an editor and so forth, we realized it was just too much. It was too big. And we've actually divided it into 2 parts. And so this will be the first of a 2-part series. And then to make it a little bit more interesting, rather than just have a compendium of words functioning like a dictionary, we created the structure of the blueprint for your personal success story, which is to break it into 5 sections. And I guess I can touch on that right now. We might as well.
Sure. Yeah.
The 5 sections, section 1 would be, so again, to make it a little bit more clear, we had fun with it and we said, well, what if this person, the reader, the student, were to think of it like writing a novel about themselves, this great novel, this epic novel, where they had this phenomenal life with these incredible experiences, surrounded by amazing people, and they themselves were incredible individuals, and the main character of this epic novel that they were authoring. So that was kind of the fun idea that we came around to finally, to make it a little bit more interesting than just a reference book. So it's broken into 5 sections. Section 1 is using your dream to develop the main character. And so right there, dream is one of the key words. Section 2, setting goals to determine the setting of your story. Where will this all take place? Goals, another incredibly powerful word. Section 3, making a plan to succeed and overcome obstacles. The key word there, plan. Section 4, taking action and letting the plot unfold. Action, the big word. And then section 5, finishing, the ultimate payoff of motivation. And I always tell friends and family and students who study with me, etc., that one of the great gifts of being a surgeon is that this sort of paradigm is mandatory in our everyday work. You have to begin, you have to have a plan, you have to have a goal for the operation, you have to take action on the operation, and one way or the other, you have to finish the operation. So it's a very disciplined profession in that way. It's not that we can, adjourn until May 22nd and reconvene as they can in court sometimes, or with legal proceedings, or come back tomorrow and finish, or say that's good enough for now. So this is part of my fundamental training, is setting a goal, making a plan, getting started, and finishing. And this is how the book is set up. And each section then has these essential power words and exercises. And I think the point of our show is to really take our time and dig deep into this material, and using everybody's personal experience and expertise and background, looking at these words and parsing them, and then taking a really deep dive and taking that journey together. And hopefully our listeners will enjoy that. And hopefully I have no doubt I'm going to learn a lot in the process, even though I'm the author of the original text. It will take on a new life with everybody else's perspective and input. So that's the big 35,000 foot view of the project, and that's where we are.
Let me ask Dr. Deborah Waitley then. Studying psychology and organizational psychology, I'm guessing you agree with this 100%. When you see all of these steps in action, good things tend to happen at the end, right?
Absolutely. I'm very aware of the power of words. Again, as an early age, I was literally programmed with those words for success. Yeah. And I'll have to say, as great of a start that was, they didn't really take hold until I was able to determine what they meant for me. So what does this word really mean for me? How do I live it in my life? So I think what's so great about this book and exciting about this project is what an opportunity to look at our lives and start with a dream, how we want to live, and create our story, building in these great words that can help us serve as our tools. It's like setting up a map for our journey along the way. And these words are a support mechanism that works unconsciously to help us on our way. So words, to me, I've always been so fascinated with them. I think, like John, it's kind of a hobby of mine. I love looking up the etymology of words. I love to look at what the origin of words mean and go back to that. And it allows me to take a deep dive into that meaning, because I think the meaning of words change over time, and it's influenced by the homes we grew up in, our culture, society, the media, and the meaning starts to change. And we want to make sure that we have a really solid foundation of what that word means to us and how we're going to apply it in our lives. So for organizations, for example, in organizations, words are so important, especially when you want to lead a group of people on a mission or a vision towards one unified objective. And it's very hard to get people with different ideas and different backgrounds, how you get them to come together and work as a team toward a common goal. And so we used to do, one of a program that I led was a word association test, go into a group of people, give them a word, go around the room, and very quickly, first impulse, what does that word mean to you? And I guarantee you throughout 20 people, the meaning was always different. Sometimes it would be the opposite of that word, the first word that come to their mind. Other times it was right along the line. We realized that in order to help people be successful, we have to make sure that we have a shared understanding of that word and what it means to us, and that is going to help us reach our goals. So I'd love to continue talking about this because it's such a big subject, and words are so important, as John said, for our unconscious and our conscious, because we can't be successful unless our unconscious is aligned with our conscious goals.
I remember hearing a commercial, I think for the first time in the 70s. I don't know if it's still out there or not, but a program where they developed your vocabulary, and the catch line was, people judge you by the words you speak. And when I heard that as a kid, I got to thinking, and then I started paying more attention to adults who had been successful. I thought, yeah, they do have a different vocabulary. They speak differently because they've been trained differently and they think differently, and it got me on the road as well. And I'm guessing you've seen that too in your work as a psychologist?
Absolutely. And I'm going to be bringing my father back into this a lot because John introduced him as being instrumental in getting us all together. So his work has obviously influenced both of our lives in different ways. Right. So yes, even though I grew up with these words and I grew up getting A's, I didn't have a very good vocabulary. And I remember my dad saying to me one time, he took us to get a natural gifts test. So we went through some testing. And I was so embarrassed when my vocabulary came out to be like a C, a grade C. And I was horrified and he said, you have to develop your vocabulary. But instead of getting the whole course on beefing up my vocabulary, I dove into what my passion was, psychology, human behavior. And of course, going to school really helped me develop that word. Before I knew it, I was speaking like a doctor when I wasn't a doctor yet. And that definitely influenced my success because people perceive you as to how you speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really helped.
It truly is amazing how that works. I've been down that road in many, many areas as well. And then Dr. Diane Chuback, of course, you've been along for the ride the entire journey. You mentioned before we started recording, you would walk into John's office and there he was typing yet again. You wondered how many millions of words he's typing there.
Yes. And honestly, I did. Oh, I'm sorry. What was your question?
No, go right ahead. Just what have you seen along the journey, and how do you fit into this whole situation?
Right. Well, yes, I did witness his writing of this book. It went on for months, maybe a year. I really don't even know. Our offices are next door to each other. Yeah. And I would come in to, ask him something or have him sign something. And there he is writing this book and just, I love it because he has so much in his mind and so much to give. And so, when I saw him in that flow state, I just left him alone and I knew that it was just one word after another. But, the thing I love about this book, now having seen it, at least half of it in its completion and how it's been organized, that's the most important part because the organization of this book, it could be such a really wonderful vehicle for people. As Deborah mentioned, like in her work, she presented a word to 10 different people. Everybody's going to have a different interpretation, definition based upon their previous experience and their life. And I think that's what's so great. This book could really mean so many things to so many different people. And so it's, for just based on my personal journey in really developing myself professionally, personally, I've come upon stumbling blocks, and I still do. I mean, and in terms of well, what do I want? Because, if you read a lot of this stuff, or is it, well, decide what you want. Well, I don't know. Gosh, I really have a lot, and I don't know what else I could possibly want. And then it's like, you ask the 5 whys, keep going back. Well, why would what else could we do to make my life more fulfilling? So, that is where this book is. A lot of people say they feel stuck. Well, I don't know where to begin. So I feel like this book could help people really, even if you started from the beginning and you develop the character of who you'd want to be, but the prompt is there, the word is there. And that's what I love, because, if I'm giving, I sit down and write in my journal, and I just see a blank page. But this book, gives me a little prompt, and then I can just, write what I think, where this word fits into the character of, who I want to be. Now, where will I go as I write my journey, my story arc? What are the problems that I have? What kind of conflicts will I have to resolve? And then, of course, obviously the resolution at the end. So that's what I love about this book. And it doesn't mean you necessarily have to start at the beginning, because there are people who do know what they want, and they're very clear in their mind what they want. So they can actually go to the end of the book first, and then just absolutely go through those words and write that part of their story, because they already have a clear vision. And then, go back and, okay, well, this is then how I'm going to do it.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah,
Very
that's
well
what
said.
I think.
Let's go back to Dr. John A. Chuback, the author of this book, and your comments on the words you've just heard from these 2 fine ladies here.
Well, the first thing I would say is that I was right about one of my predictions. I'm already learning. I'm I'm taking notes as we go here, and I'm filling my journal with great stuff, really great stuff, and I mean that very sincerely. I remember one of my other mentors, who's gone now, Jim Rohn, who Deborah's father knew quite well over the years. Um, he used to say, tongue in cheek, to his audience, "I couldn't wait to get here today to see what I had to say, to hear what I had to say,"
Yeah.
because you are prepared, and you have expertise in the area. But through this conversation and through this process of discussion, what we call masterminding and third minding, invariably new things come up. So I am taking notes here feverishly. There's going to be another book, um, but I loved Deborah's idea of living the words. That's essential. That we don't just have this experience in our mind. It can be a very feel good kind of thing to study personal development and read and get inspired, but you can't just be inspired. You have to act. You can't just do the feel good stuff. Sometimes you have to do the work. So feel good to learn another language. That's a great feeling. But then when you go to learn another language, that's where the work starts. You say, oh my goodness, I don't know if I'm ever going to get anywhere with in learning Spanish or Portuguese or whatever it is that the person wishes to do. That's where the rubber hits the road. So you have to live these words. That's a beautiful, beautiful sentiment, and I hadn't really heard it that way before. The other thing, based on what Diane and Deborah both said, one of my favorite concepts that I came across in my study somewhere along the line was this idea that, and I had never thought of this way before, and I think most people don't think of this way, but I strongly believe this now. We cannot think beyond the limits of our vocabulary. If you have an extremely limited vocabulary, the fact of the matter is you're a limited thinker. Now that may not sound very nice, but the good news is you can expand your vocabulary. The more limited your lexicon is, the more ineffective you are in being able to express yourself, come up with new ideas, contribute. So that's why it would be almost impossible for, let's say, the 3 of you at this time to contribute to a surgical conversation about a patient, because you don't have the vocabulary. Right. What does the vocabulary represent? Your understanding. By the same token, if they bring me into an architectural meeting, I have really very little to offer, except maybe my idea of what looks nice. But if you bring me into engineering meeting to build a bridge, forget about it. the bridge will collapse. I have no idea what these terms mean and what their power is in the context of the conversation of these, let's say, structural engineers.
Right.
So I can't think about building bridges except on the most fundamental root. Oh, there's one side of the river, there's the other side of the river. But to actually build a functional bridge, I don't have the vocabulary or the understanding to do so. And it is vocabulary. A lot of times people, we confuse it. Well, no, it's not just vocabulary. It's physics, it's mathematics, true. But it comes down to understanding terms and being able to then apply those terms even if it's in formulaic calculations. But if you don't have the thinking based on the words, you can't get started. So we can't think beyond the limits of our vocabulary. Hopefully this book will give people an expanded vocabulary in the area of personal development and personal achievement, and that will get them going on their way. And that was something I picked up on what Diane said, which I thought was great when she talks about stumbling blocks. Everybody has stumbling blocks. That's the purpose of all these shows. That's the purpose of all these books. That's the purpose of, personal development genre in general, the Oprah Winfrey show, and so on and so forth. People have problems. People have obstacles. People have troubles in life. And all of this material is there to help us deal with that and manage it. So that brought me to an interesting thought. There's something that could be perceived as arrogant when you call yourself a success coach or a personal development teacher, that you're implying, and Paul and I talk about this in our other programs, that you're implying that you have all the answers or that you know it all. And that's nothing could be further from the truth. I'm on this journey with everybody else. We're working at this stuff just like everybody else is. So the idea that you're studying success doesn't mean that you're a failure. As Diane said, sometimes she wonders, what do I really want? What do I want to become? What do I want to have? What do I want to do? Because, we have, a pretty great life to begin with. So you almost feel guilty or greedy to want more. But nothing can be further from the truth. We're here for expression and expansion, and we're here for service and serving others. So the more that we become, the more service we can provide. And I think that's also a big part of it. One of the things I like is the idea that setting goals is not about getting things. It's about growth. It's about growing. You may get stuff as a side benefit of that growth, but you won't get material things and so on and so forth unless you grow as a human being and as a human person. And it's always going to come back to service. Look at the four of us together making this program. What are we doing? Hopefully serving. We could have this discussion offline and talk to each other, but the purpose is to share it with other people. And if they're having stumbling blocks in their life, if they're stuck, quote unquote, as Diane said, in their lives, hopefully this conversation and the book will, as Diane said so beautifully, prompt people to take action, even through the exercises at the end of each word, at the end of each section. Because many people, they look at an empty journal and they say, I don't know what to write. I don't know what to say. I don't know how this works. I don't know what to do. Well, this book, because of the exercises that are in it, forces one, if they'll participate, to write, to answer questions, to look inside, to dig down deep, to go inside and to take action with a pen and paper, which is where so much achievement begins, with pen and paper. So I thought that was excellent. And then on this idea of being stuck, that seems to be a very, very hot button term today, very hot term and phrase that we hear in the media and in social media and in the realm of personal development. And I guess some people are stuck, but I have to say that my impression in dealing with people as a physician every day and seeing the different problems that they have in their lives and so forth is that most people aren't really stuck, and I think that's good news. I think most people are stopped, and there's a difference. the analogy that I always use is stuck is when, you drive off the road into a ditch and you break an axle and you break a steering mechanism in the car. You're stuck.
Right.
Car's broken. You need a heavy duty tow truck to come and, pull you up out of that ditch and get to the repair shop and get that car fixed. My observation is that for some reason, at some point in life, in early adulthood or late early adulthood, late 20s, early 30s, when people sort of get into a rut, so to speak, they just kind of pull the car over to the side of the road and put it in park, you know or they coast to a stop. But they're not really as stuck as they think. I think that they've just sort of lost their mojo. They've just sort of lost that energy, that momentum of and ambition and drive and desire. And I think it can be regained. I think it can be reignited. And I think programs like ours and books like these are instrumental in that.
Just out of curiosity, why do you think people lose that mojo at some point in their mid to late 20s or early 30s? Just reality setting in, having kids, having to work every day for a living, or what?
Well, I think that I've thought quite a bit about this. I'm sure it's multifactorial, and I'd love to hear what the others have to say about it. But one of the things is, for most people, a formal education ends, and a formal education is a really effective thing in pushing you forward. In other
Mhm.
words, you just look at, not that this is a novel concept, but I think it's worth looking at again and repeating. Look at the educational process of elementary level education, and this is a great place for Paul to kick in, because he has a doctorate in education. Um, when you're 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 years old, you're expected, at that tender age, you're expected to participate in physical activity through the physical education program. You're expected to perhaps participate in team sports in the recreational league program. You're expected to play a musical instrument, even if it's something fundamental like the recorder, which many of us had. You go to music class. You go to art class. You're expected to draw and paint and sculpt and work with clay. You Today, in our generation, this wasn't the case, but now you're expected to learn a second language at that young age, and you're expected to sing in the chorus in the auditorium at the holiday season, et cetera, et cetera. A lot is expected of young people, and they rise to the challenge. They rise to the occasion because everybody else is doing it. So you're learning, you're growing, you're expanding. It's fascinating. By the time people get to middle school, most people are no longer participating in music, no longer participating in sports, no longer participating in the arts, no longer painting, drawing, etc. Some people may do one of those, but very few continue to do all of them.
Right.
And so you're already slowing down by the time you're 12, 13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
By the time people finish high school, many people are not participating in any extracurricular activities, and they're just looking at their academic piece and hoping to graduate or etc. Beyond that, it only continues to shrink and shrink, the expectation. So most adults, you say to them, in the United States, do you speak a second language? No. But didn't you take a language in school? Yes. Well, why can't you speak? I don't know. I didn't learn to speak. I don't feel comfortable speaking. Can can you draw? I can't even draw a straight line, they'll tell you. I said, do you have a ruler? If you got a ruler and a pencil, I can show you how to draw a straight line. But people are so convinced I'm incompetent, I'm inept. I can't do that. I can't dance. I can't sing. I can't draw. I can't paint. I can't speak another language. I have this job and I work at this place and I go perform this function, and that's all there is to me. I'm about that big.
Yeah.
And that process is happening um, in our society. And I think it's shameful, quite frankly.
I hadn't thought of it about that way before, but I think you're onto something. We just do less and less. We go to work, we take care of our family, and we repeat the next day. Uh, Forgetting what you said in early elementary school, you're doing it all at that age. Uh, little by little, we start taking things away, or things are taken away from us, or we just give up, right? As a whole.
Well, exactly right. And I do this as an exercise, quite frankly, and I do it to hopefully inspire people around me, quite consciously. Uh, Currently, I'm taking classical guitar lessons. I have a studio in my house where I paint and draw and sculpt. I recently sent Deborah and Dennis a couple of paintings. I don't know if they've received them yet. Um, and um, I write books. I make podcasts. I'm a physician, right? People say, oh, he's the Renaissance man, the Renaissance man, the Renaissance man. The only difference between me and everybody else is that I go ahead and write the book. I go ahead and make the painting. I go ahead and call the guy and invite him to my home for a guitar lesson.
Right.
I'm not a virtuoso guitarist. I don't have any paintings in the Metropolitan Museum of Art or the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. I've never sold a painting. Those don't. I do it for the purpose of pushing myself, to stretch myself, to be a fully actualized human person, and say it's my God-given right to paint and draw and write poetry. I've written a book of poetry.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that anybody will ever buy it or anybody will ever read it, but that's not going to stop me from expressing myself in poetry. It doesn't make me a great poet. I don't have to be a great poet to write poetry. I don't have to be a great dancer to enjoy dancing at a wedding.
Right.
I feel that we've been um, damaged by this system to say, if you're not great at something, if you're not the very best, then you shouldn't participate at all. You're
Right.
you're you're worthless. And I think a good word to describe, I think that's shameful that
Yeah.
we've gotten to that point
Yeah.
as a culture and a society, because we all have something to say. We all have something to write. We all enjoy singing in the shower. Who cares if you're off tune? You're not
Right.
you don't have a record deal. It's not American Idol. So um, express yourself. We have such tremendous potential. That I'll pass it back over. Sir John Eccles wrote a beautiful book called The Wonder of Being Human. He won a Nobel Prize for neuroscience, and he worked on the synapse. Brilliant doctor, but he was an MD PhD. He was interested in the mind. And in his book, he says, we're all equal as human beings. We have the same exact genome. Okay, we're all Homo sapiens sapien. We're equal in that regard, but we're not equal as human persons. And there's this, he called it the ladder of human personhood. And he said it should be your objective to try to climb that ladder. Learn another language, learn to paint, learn to draw, learn to write poetry, learn to sing, work on your voice, learn to dance, go to Arthur Murray, go to Fred Astaire Studios. You're allowed to dance,
Right.
you're allowed to sing, you're allowed to paint. Express yourself as a human person in your totality, in your fullness. We have so many gifts, and we've put those gifts in the closet. We're not stuck, we're stopped. We took all of those beautiful gifts that they were trying to bring out in us in childhood, and we wrapped them in an old newspaper and stuck them in the back of the closet.
Mm.
One more thing. Beautiful, beautiful thing that Bob Proctor, one of my other mentors, who unfortunately we just lost recently, and that hit me pretty hard. An incredible impact on my life he had. He said that at one time Deborah was saying how she and her dad were working in China for several years. Bob Proctor was going back and forth to Kuala Lumpur for a number of years. He used to joke, he said it was a 25-hour flight. He said if you went any further, you were on your way back. That's how far away it was. But he said he was working with a gentleman there in Kuala Lumpur who had a son who was 4 years old. And the husband was of one nationality. The wife was of another nationality. They were living in a country of another nationality, and they had a housekeeper of a fourth nationality. So this 4-year-old child was speaking 4 languages fluently. And
Yeah.
nobody said a thing about it. Nobody thought it was at all unusual. And what Proctor says so beautifully in this program I was listening to, he says, do you know why the 4-year-old could speak 4 languages? Because he hadn't yet learned to say, I can't.
There you go.
I
Yeah.
mean, how good is that?
Yeah, that's perfect.
But what about the rest of us? How
Right.
frequently do those 2 words come out of our mouths? I can't. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't play the drums. I can't play the guitar. I can't paint. I can't sing. I can't dance. I can't start my own business. I can't go back to school.
Right.
Or I'm not. I'm not any good at that. I'm not smart. I'm not college material. I'm not, you know, meant to be successful. I'm not.
Yep. Let me get Deborah's thoughts. So let's turn to Dr. Deborah Waitley. Why is that? What Dr. John Chuback just said. Why do we get out there as 5-year-olds and just try everything? Work on the monkey bars, throw a basketball, sing, whatever. Let's just try it. And by a certain age, we just don't do that anymore. Kind of like you just said. As a psychologist, why do people do that or stop doing what they used to do?
There's so many reasons, but I think in general we can say that as we age, yes, we start to close off our opportunities. A lot of it is conditioning by society. I'll have to say it's the messages we're told. So as a child, you're born with this innate sense of wonder and the desire to explore our environment, and just there's no limits because we don't know that word yet
Yeah.
as far as our own expression. And I think the challenge becomes, and it comes back to language, unfortunately, or the words that we choose to describe a certain meaning, and that becomes universal. So even the word success and what that means. So at an early age, we're taught you need to do these things in order to go out into adulthood and be able to support yourself and earn a living so that you can then hopefully be successful. So the very notion of success, whereas a child, you might have thought of it as being myself and expressing myself in the world, exploring all these things, becomes perhaps more limited as to I've got to become more of this and not this, and do those things that will allow me to have a stable income, get a job, support a family eventually. And before we know it, we've lost our own connection with what success means to us.
Yeah.
So, we were talking about being stuck, and then John introduced more words like I'm stuck, I can't do this, I don't know how, I can't, I won't. And that reinforces the being stuck. And as John said, we're really just stopped. And I want to introduce another word to that. It's a pause. We're taking a pause. We've stopped going in one direction, and we have to stop telling ourselves we're stuck and can't move, but make it our own personal choice. Okay, I'm stuck, and rewire it, reframe it. Okay, well, I'm stopped for now. It's just a temporary pause in order for me to reframe what it is I want to do next or where I want to go next. So there's a reason for being stuck and pause, and we have to look at what is the positive in this. Maybe it's an unconscious energy in me that doesn't want to continue this course in my life. So now I feel stuck. Well, what else can we bring in to create a new road for ourselves? And that's where a book like this, Blueprint for Success, maybe it's bringing in another concept, another word to get us out of being stuck. When I think of stuck, I have a visual of being stuck in the mud. I think of John saying the cars pull over the side of the road and you're stuck. Right. Stuck in the mud, you can't move. Your life energy is thwarted. And so it's simply maybe expanding your sense of what's next. And John has a good point. I hadn't really thought about it before as the power of words. If we don't have the ability to think beyond what we already know, we're not going to get there. So maybe it's as simple as introducing a new word like resiliency or aspiration. There's so many beautiful words that I love, and that's what I loved about this book and exploring words is I like to go through it and pick out all the words that resonate with me energetically and start incorporating those more in my life. So, getting out of the mud and finding, how can I expand my thinking, my feeling, my life, and introducing a new concept? And that can really help us, because we need to get out of the rut that we possibly thought we were in moving towards success. And I just want to introduce something. This was really interesting as to the meaning of words, the different meaning. I just wanted to see where we were with success and what it means. So I went to dictionary.com, and I was just a little bit appalled. I want to say horrified. As John said, it's a shame as to where our society is taking us, where we're going, or allowing ourselves to be taken. But the definition was actually, I want to go to the favorable or prosperous termination of attempts or endeavors towards accomplishment. That was the very first line. And I thought, what? And that's because if we focus too much of success as a goal, and then once you reach a goal, that goal is terminated, finished, stopped, it's no wonder we can become stuck. And our human nature is to always grow and evolve. So then we just think, well, set a new goal. And what I love about some of the other definitions of success I'll bring in, John mentioned Bob Proctor, and he said, reaching a goal is not success, because success is always moving. So it's that movement. And I asked my dad yesterday, I told him about the show that we were going to be doing. I said, what do you think your best definition of success is? And he said, well, it's always been, I've taken Earl Nightingale's, success is the progressive realization towards a goal. And then my dad said, he added, for yourself and others. So you want to expand it to include the whole. But what I like about that progressive moving realization, and I love taking the word realize and looking at it as real eyes. You put your real, authentic eyes on what you want, your vision, and that's going to help you be aligned. And then the second definition of success, I was even more appalled, the attainment of wealth, position, and honor. So if those are our definitions and those are the meanings that we are applying to this term success, and we're creating young people are coming into the world and they want to explore and be all they can be and live their human potential, the word success to them might very well be limiting to who they can become. And it's no wonder problems in society just explode and people get stuck and don't know where to go from there.
Yeah. Well, how about you, Dr. Diane Chuback? Anything to add to that? Are you in that same situation? Are you taking guitar lessons as well, or something else you're exploring, or how's that going?
I am not taking guitar lessons. No, I would like to start the piano, and so maybe that will happen soon, because I'm very inspired by John with his music now. But I did want to say that we were discussing how children they have that innate curiosity, and they don't have any stops, right? I mean, they'll just ask questions, they'll do things, and their parents are always pulling them back. No, dangerous. No, don't do that. No, don't behave that way. And so, the child's full self and their expression of themselves just gets pared down and down and down as they get older. And to the point, like through, educational years, whether it's college, graduate school, or whatever, career preparation someone's doing, you are living a little bit in a theoretical world. When you finally come out and now it's time for marriage. Wow. Now it's time for children. Now it's time for managing maybe others in the workplace, or just dealing with coworkers. I mean, it's, it can get very overwhelming. And sometimes, yes, I mean, a person can become a little bit calcified in there, because they're just worried too much about, making a mistake, or offending others, or, not going too far out on a limb because of fear of failure. So, I think that, this book is a wonderful, it's just a wonderful intro, just some place to start for someone who does feel stuck, someone who does feel like, okay, I've lost my momentum. Like, why is everything just stopping right now? And, my mother has used the expression, because if she'd asked me to do something and said, oh, I'm too tired. She goes, yes, but energy begets energy. Right. And to what Deborah was saying, what do I do to reinstill this energy, in my life and myself? And I feel like if you just start doing something, if you just start work with these prompts in the book, energy begets energy. You put a little into it and then you'll get some back and then you'll get more. And then what is that? Now this is momentum. And the feeling of positivity again about yourself can come back. And I know, Deborah, you appreciate this. And this is something like, whereas John has taken this book and it's a compilation of words and their definitions, their interpretations, and how we can then incorporate them into our life story. The Psychology of Winning was a collection of phrases, right? And one of my favorite phrases is positive self-expectancy. And, that just comes with saying to yourself, wow, I can do this. I just speak in the affirmative. And, and how do you get there? You get there just by starting. Just get your momentum going again. See yourself, when you start writing about yourself, you learn a lot. Like, you let that flow come through and you say, wow, I need to revisit who I am, because all of these years I've been looking outward. I've been watching the kids. I've been, working on my marriage and my coworkers and everybody else in my life. It's you lose that sense of self. So now this is a great way to go back and reflect inside, with this person.
Yeah, yeah, very well said. And Dr. John Chuback, back to you. You've heard the two ladies speak. Any response?
Yeah, I do have a very important response, which is, all joking aside, I've loved today's program. And as I predicted, I've learned a lot and I've grown a lot. I have copious notes here. I could go on and on about how I want to respond to what Deborah and Diane said. And this is essential. This is essential to what we're talking about. So here we've created a radio show and a podcast. We've been trained to think, and we've had some of those discussions in preparation for today's show. Well, why would anybody want to listen to us? Or what is it that we have to offer that's new, and so on and so forth. So this is essential to getting stuck also. This is essential to being in that rut, because now how we've been trained culturally and societally is that I'm going to dictate my behavior based on what other people think about me and how I perceive they might think about me if I were to act. So therefore, I won't even act. I'm not going to make a painting, because what if they don't like it? What if they say it's not good? What if they say it's garbage? If they say it's ugly? Bring it around again, this idea of why people get stuck and why children can do things that adults don't seem to do. Well, again, third mind, we're having this mastermind discussion, and you sparked some great ideas in me. I want to thank the group for this. Well, when I think about kids, what do kids like to do when it comes to music, art, sports, etc.? What are they doing? They're playing. They like to play. Kids always want to play. Come on, Dad, let's play. They want to get together with their friends and play. Adults, we don't play enough, right? Everything is work, stress, judgment, apprehension. What will they think? What will the neighbors think? What will they think if they hear me play the guitar? I'm lousy at the guitar. I'm not going to play. They said, play something for us. I don't want to play. I'm not ready yet. Judgment. The kid doesn't care. He's having fun. He's having fun playing the guitar. He's having fun banging on the drums. He's experiencing joy. These are great words: play, fun, joy. What do we have now? Work, stress, judgment, right? And this brings us to a very, very important concept: external versus internal. The child is driven internally. I'm having fun. This feels good. This feels great. I want to do more. I don't want to go home. I want to stay at the park. I want to play on the monkey bars. Paul mentioned the monkey bars. It brought a smile to my face. I haven't thought about the monkey bars in years. And I remember as a kid trying the monkey bars, but I was, a chubby kid. It was very difficult for me. And I envied the little light guys who could swing around on the monkey bars, but I tried and I had fun and I would play and we were competing, but it was internal. I wasn't worried what they thought about me on the monkey bars. I was having fun. I was playing. And so that's a big part, I think, about this problem is the perspective is too external right now. What will the world think of my show? What would the world think of my book? What would the world think of my painting? There's a very famous painter named Donald Sultan, who's still a living painter, lives in New York, has had a very successful career. And I watched a video with Donald Sultan one day. They said, what advice would you give to young artists? He said, the advice that I would give them is to paint as if they lived in a cabin in the woods and no one in the world would ever see what they made. Mm-hmm. Just express yourself. Yeah. Don't go from the perception of what will they think if I'm 50 pounds overweight and I want to put on a pair of shorts and walk around the block. Right? What if I look too fat in these shorts? Maybe I should, let's just skip it. It's all about external judgment. And that's something that'll get you stopped. That's something that'll get you stuck. If you're too worried about what other people think, and then you get in this rut. And one of the things I like, and I'll stop it there. People have said that a rut is just a grave with the two ends kicked out. The only difference between a rut and a grave is the length, but the depth and the width are the same. So, let's let the dead bury the dead and they can take up the graves. But while we're here and we're living, let's try to gravitate to some of these three words: play, fun, joy. Love that. Thank you guys. I would that's from doing the thing and having the conversation. You could never plan that. That's the other thing I wanted to say. We talk about, I had a professor who used to say, let's begin to begin. Let's just get started. The discussion we had today, I fully enjoyed it. I learned a lot from everybody, but it can't be scripted. You can't script this stuff. It has to be a real conversation, a genuine, sincere conversation. And I think it was. And I want to thank everybody for participating.
All right, and that wraps up our first episode, The Blueprint to Your Success Story. And Dr. Deborah Waitley from California, thank you for being with us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Author and psychologist. I forgot to put that in there. Thank you very much for being here. Dr. Diane Chuback, CEO of Chuback Medical Group, thank you as well.
Thank you. It's been lovely.
All right, Dr. John A. Chuback, of course, thank you. And great work on this book. Can't wait to dive into episode 2.
It's going to be very exciting. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you very much, and share this episode with your friends, The Blueprint to Your Success Story, and we'll see you for episode 2 next time.